Okay guys, so here's yet another video that goes along with our comics slash graphic novels slash, we could even say, illustration lesson. In this video, I'm going to try to keep it short, but I don't want to skimp on the details here. So it may or may not be short, this video. But this video is going to be about composition, layout, and storyboarding. So composition and layout are basically the same thing. It's all part of the design of your story. Because remember, you're not just making an artwork. You're not just making a drawing. You're making a story. You're trying to tell a story. So your final artwork is going to be at least a page showing that beginning, middle, and an end of a story. Now, it may not be the end of the story. You might not have the end at it, but let's say your story is two characters who are in some sort of a conflict. Let's say they're fighting over a piece of chocolate cake, and the beginning is both of the characters discovering the piece of chocolate cake. The middle is them arguing over why they each should get to eat the chocolate cake, and then let's say the last panel, and this could all be one page, is one of them slips and the chocolate cake crashes on the floor. So there's a little bit of action at the end. Now, that's a beginning, middle, and end. It's not the absolute end of the story because there's always a what if next. And in fact, if you've ever read comics before, they go that way. Every month a book comes out and you get a story, but there's always a to be determined next month or next month in the Avengers or whatever. So I want to talk about all of this because in a way, telling a story with the style of comics and graphic novels is almost like making a movie, because you're not just writing sentences that are telling the story, but you're also composing pictures that go along with those sentences. And maybe the sentences are narration, or maybe the sentences are dialogue. You know, your two characters are talking to each other. Think of our two characters that each want to eat the piece of chocolate cake. What are they saying? And how are you going to present that? How are you going to present that? So to start off, we want to, and I've got some notes here, we want to just talk about layout. So this book, again, I'm going to lean on the masters. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan Lee. John Buscema are the artists that, is the artist that has done all the illustrations in this book. And there is actually a whole section just on composition, on how to lay out the images that tell the story. And that's really what storyboarding is. So there's some great examples in here of storyboarding, but the example that I really want to focus on is this. These are two examples of how to tell the same Avengers story. So this is sample 1 and this is sample 2. And you'll see why Stan Lee says that sample 2 is much better. In this chapter, they're talking about how you compose each panel. So they want you to do, they say that what makes a more compelling story is to use dynamic composition. So first, let's look at these two panels right here. These are both the same, basically the same story. And the story is Doctor Strange entering a room. And if you look at Doctor Strange here, he's coming in the door, he's entering a room, but it's kind of a boring, flat picture. There's not a whole lot of depth to it. There's not a whole lot of dynamism, as Stan Lee might say. Then you look at sample 2, and imagine if you had your camera and you were taking this picture. That's kind of what he's trying to push you to think about here is the camera angle. So you're kind of looking up and slightly skewed here, the angle. Here's another sample. Here's Doctor Doom. Here's just a straight on look at Doctor Doom, and here's a sort of like at an angle, much more interesting. But at the same time, I want you to keep things simple. So you may not be able to draw this detail. Remember, the artists that drew this are professional comic book artists, so of course they have way more training than you. Keep it simple, okay? So let's look at these two really quick, these two samples. So you zoom out here. So the first panel is the Thing crashes through a wall. So you see kind of a pulled out. Here's Captain America, Iron Man, and the Vision. And the Thing, who's part of the Fantastic Four, crashes through the wall. Then they all react to it. and it's just kind of a straight on look at them. Then they run. Then they start fighting the Thing. Then the Thing picks up Iron Man to throw him across the room. And then there's Captain America and the Vision sort of like, oh my God. Now, here's another take. This is with the more dynamic posing. Same story, but more dynamic posing. So here's the Thing crashing through the wall. Actually, I'm not sure if that's the Thing. Let me see what it says. Oh, well, it's not important. Let's just say it's the Thing. It might be Thing's actually a good guy, so he shouldn't really be fighting the Avengers, but even in Marvel comics, sometimes the good guys fight, just like Iron Man and Captain America and Winter Soldier and Civil War. And there they are reacting, but we've got them all in really interesting angles. And then here they are coming to battle the monster. And then here's a really cool action pose of Iron Man throwing a punch. And then a more dramatic pose of the monster lifting Iron Man up, about to toss him across the room. And then we've got that upward angle where we're kind of like kneeling down, looking up at our characters. So that's being dynamic with your camera angles. But like I said, keep it simple. So I do have a sample of my own that I made. I made this a few years ago. I don't have the dynamic angles, but this would be a really good example of storyboarding. So when you're trying to plan out your story, you're going to want to almost sketch out each one. Now, I did color these just to make them a little bit brighter, but this one is a storyboard that I created for Dexter. My character is Dexter, and this is Dexter. And on this page, and I have a couple pages here, he just looks like your normal average boy, except he happens to be a monkey. So here he is, he's yawning in the mirror, looking at himself, picking his ear. Then he's, of course, brushing his teeth, and then here he is cleaning up. Then we cut to the next scene here, and here is Dexter taking off on his bicycle. Maybe he's going to go to school. Maybe he's going to deliver newspapers, something like that. But here's where I do get a little bit dynamic. So then the next scene, it says later that day, and you may want to include narration as well. Dexter is walking down the street, looks like just your average town. We've got a little bit of perspective here with the sidewalk looking like it's going back into space and the buildings as well. I can show you how to do that if you want to use tricks like that. And then we see this figure here who's wearing a yellow coat and has like a hat. Almost looks like maybe a spy or a robber or something. Then we get a close-up look and we see he's not just a normal person. He's some sort of weird kind of monster. And I'm covering the next few panels because I don't want to spoil it for you there. And then we see the monster reaching out for Dexter, roaring, and Dexter has got some beads of sweat there, and he's looks like sort of panicky, and in the monster saying roar monkey. But then the next panel is Dexter whips out a banana cannon and points it at the monster and blasts him, and that's what this here is. And it hurts the monster so bad, maybe it's banana pepper spray, who knows? Use your imagination. And he is crying, and it's very painful, and the monster is, for all intents and purposes, vanquished. Then we cut to a page with a random alien. This is a sketchbook, so of course I'm just sketching all sorts of things. And then the last bit of storyboarding that I did is Dexter standing over the vanquished monster. His banana cannon is smoking some sort of blue smoke. We see the background there a little bit. Then we cut to a close-up, and it appears as though Dexter is not your normal boy, monkey, but and I took this idea from, if you've ever watched SpongeBob SquarePants, they always, every once in a while, they do these extreme close-ups where you see all the detail on the character, and you can see like a 5 o'clock shadow with whiskers, and you can see scars, and you can see like junk in the character's teeth, and maybe there's fumes coming out of their mouth because they have stinky breath or whatever like that. I love that aspect of SpongeBob. That was always something that I found really amusing. So I kind of did that here, and we see Dexter's got scars, and his teeth are kind of weird, and he's got more scars up here. He's got bloodshot eyes. He looks like a battle-hardened monkey. And then the last page that I didn't quite finish is him walking away, carrying his weapon. He's got some sort of sign on his back. And then up here it says Dexter the Demon Hunter. So this would be like the beginning of a comic book right? And then here I'm planning out the little logo that he's like a demon hunter in the guise of a innocent, young-looking little monkey. Maybe he's like 21 Jump Street or something like that, where he's really like a space police or something, but he's in the guise of a child, that type of thing. So you show, and this is part of character development as well. So you start off with something that shows one aspect of a character, and then by the middle or end of the story, you're seeing something different about them. So that's storyboarding. And so I recommend that in your sketchbook, before you get your final piece of paper and you start sketching out your panels and figuring it out, do a sketch in your sketchbook. You don't have to color it and get all elaborate like I did here. Of course you can if you want. It's just going to be very time consuming, but plan your story out. Make some notes. Write down if there's going to be dialogue. Write down, who says what. My story is silent. You can have a silent story too. That's another way to tell a story, is just using the images, but you may want to have some narration, so write out what the narration is. Just kind of let your mind pour onto the paper, let go a little bit, like we've been saying, let the ideas swoop in, and let's see what you can do. Alrighty, that was 11 minutes and 30 seconds. I didn't keep it short, but anyways, bye-bye.